The member has up to 5 minutes to debate the matter, and the parliamentary assistant may reply for up to 5 minutes. I now turn it over to the member from Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I apologize for having to have you here at this late hour, and for the clerk and the table for being here. It is part of the parliamentary procedure. When a minister refuses or does not answer a question in the legislature, I do have the opportunity to take this further, called a late show, in which I'm here tonight. And I'm pretty sure I could talk for hours and hours on this topic, but I do want to take the opportunity to thank the Aylmer District stakeholders who have taken the time, volunteer group created by this government about 10 or 11 years ago, to give them advice on the fish and wildlife maintenance in our 4 districts in the area of Ontario. This group had great relations with ministers of natural resources. They speak highly of Donna Cansfield. They think that she was probably the best minister of natural resources they've ever had to deal with. It's unfortunate, since I've been elected in 2011, the relationship with the ministers have decreased substantially. I want to thank Minister Morrow. When he was MNR minister, he met with the Aylmer District stakeholders. I gave him kudos for doing that. However, since I was elected in 2011, the one question we brought forward was the special purpose account and how that money is being spent. The special purpose account was created by the Conservatives in '95 and '96. They made some changes to it, but basically they made an agreement with the hunters and anglers of the provinces that we're going to charge you a license fee, but we're going to take that money. We're going to take the money from royalties that we get from the commercial fishing industry. We're going to take the money from the fines that we levy on people who are breaking the rules and regulations out hunting and angling, put it in a pot, and that money solely must be spent back to improve the opportunities for hunting and fishing in this province. Dedicated funds, special purpose account. What has happened, though, is that hunters and anglers do not know how that money is being spent, and they've questioned this ministry, this government, for years. How is that money spent? When I was elected, this government per year is supposed to table a report on the special purpose account. They hadn't tabled it in years, and it took me until maybe 2013, 2014 of pressuring this government. They actually tabled and caught up to the legislation these reports. Now when you say, yeah, they tabled this report, there's your answer. That's not the answer, because when you look at the reports, you get their pie charts. They don't specifically answer the question of how this money is being spent. And this all stems back to the fact that this Aylmer District stakeholders, created by this government to help with fish and wildlife management, asked for $10,000 of the $70 million that's collected each year in license fees, $10,000 to study the deer population in our area, because we were having trouble with it. We want to understand what's going on with it so that we could make changes. We could ask the landowners to make changes and hunters in order to strengthen the population of the deer. Their response is, we don't have the money. There's no money. There's not $10,000 out of $75 million that's collected. So that raised the issue, so where'd the money go? And they have not had a single answer from this government of where the money goes and how it's spent. In fact, what brought today's question up was the fact that the district stakeholders had a Freedom of Information Act, and they asked, can you give us details of how the money's spent? And the response from the government was, we don't keep those records. However, the Financial Administration Act states that in order to disperse the money from a special purpose account, you have to provide receipts and record it. So the government is not doing the job. What are they doing with the money? It upsets the hunting and fishing population. Mr. Speaker, the regulation books the government produces each year has declined. Many hunters and anglers cannot get access to the regulation books they need while they're out in the field. They can't use their phones because we don't get reception. Mr. Speaker, the reports weren't tabled. The Environmental Commissioner had even said that it appears that the Ministry of Natural Resources is walking away from many parts of its job to safeguard wildlife and natural resources. The response to all these concerns, this government introduced a service fee of $2 for every transaction with the Ministry of Natural Resources plus HST. They boosted the amount of money that the hunters and anglers have to pay for zero in response. They can't even give details of how they spent this money. This minister has claimed they gave $800,000 to the Aylmer area. Prove it. Give us the details, give us the receipts of how they've spent that money. That's my question to this ministry, and I hope they answer me soon.
Thank you very much. The parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry now has up to 5 minutes to respond.
Thank you, Speaker. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. My wife has gone to the hockey game. No, it's not a hockey game, it's a baseball game, isn't it? Sometimes we get a little confused. I should mention that it is, of course, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and having been PA on previous occasions, I'm so used to saying MNR. But I want to just acknowledge, of course, our Minister is and is extremely available at all times, Minister Catherine McGarry, and the two previous ministers, which my good friends across the way had mentioned, of course, are Minister David Orazietti and Minister Bill Morrill, who both have done a great job. I thank the member from Elgin, Middlesex, London, and answer his question in regards to Ontario Fish and Wildlife Special Purpose Accounts, generally referred to as a SPA. The member opposite has raised concerns about our fish and wildlife special purpose accounts. I can assure you I'm certainly not aware of anything, and I'm certainly not concerned because I do sit on the major ministers' meetings. And on this side of the floor, we're committed to protecting Ontario's natural heritage while supporting recreational and economic opportunities for the people of Ontario. In 2015, just passed, Ontario's Fish and Wildlife Spa contributed nearly $71 million to fish and wildlife management activities in Ontario. That's a substantial and significant number. The SPA helps fund important fish and wildlife management programs such as monitoring fish and wildlife populations, fish stocking, fish and wildlife research, conservation officers and enforcement, hunter education, and contracts to outside scientists and experts to conduct research. However, Speaker, in a province as vast as ours, there is always more to do, and I would be the first to admit that. That's why our government provides additional funding on top of the SPA to provide for additional wildlife management, those programs, and additional research and additional education to improve fish and wildlife management in our province. Keep looking at that clock. Speaker, the member opposite has raised particular concerns about transparency in regards to the SPA. Our government remains committed to an open and transparent process. That is why we publish an annual report on the Fish and Wildlife Spa and table these reports here in the legislature. Once tabled in the legislature, we take additional steps to ensure that public has easy access to those reports by making them available on the government website. And Speaker, if the member opposite is so concerned about our special purpose account members, I encourage him and of course everyone else to look online to our website. It's not a complicated one, even I could look it up, and that's ontario.ca. So take that and run with it, and you're off to the races. Reports from the 1999-2014 are currently available on that site. These are very informative and clearly demonstrate how the funds from the SPA are being used in programs such as fish stocking, lake trout, rehabilitation, efforts to eliminate and mitigate the spread of aquatic invasive species. It takes a long time for 5 minutes, doesn't it? All of these efforts are helping our fish and wildlife populations, and I think everyone's aware of that. Furthermore, Speaker, our government has firm guidelines that govern how the SPA funds are used, and there are processes in place to review these guidelines each year to ensure Ontario is getting most out of our investment. In the interest of transparency, our government has made changes beginning with the 2014-2015 annual report, which make it much easier to read and understand the data, numbers, and information being presented to the general public. These changes include our annual reports being written in an infographic style. More detail is provided from the description of service, and important facts and figures are highlighted throughout. Additionally, we have provided more details on the spa funding than absolutely ever before. Breaking down expenditure details by service category to show the public what their money is really going towards. Speaker, it is important to share that within our annual report, we produce background information on the fish and wildlife spa, as well as financial information which includes a summary of spa recoveries, revenues, year-end account balances, actual expenditures by standard account, and a summary of future planned spending.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.